Alrighty, welcome to ANS presentation. So, presentation in ANS. When entering an item into a Dragon Master, Qualls tournament, or other cultural competition, and this could be at park level, kingdom level, interkingdom level, you want to present your piece in an appealing way. The presentation differs from item to item and can vary greatly between categories. Because of this, we're going to break things down and go through each different category to see how you might present food versus garb versus a sword. So, because each category, each item is going to be displayed differently. Starting with fine arts, 2D and 3D. For a lot of this two-dimensional art, it's a good idea to frame it. You also could prop it up on an easel to make it more visually appealing, to make it easier for the judges to see. For your three-dimensional art, the example of this chainmail dragon that's on a book that then has some cloth put over it, that props that up both physically and visually. This three-dimensional art is elevated. Up in the right hand of the PowerPoint, you can see there's this wet specimen, and I actually talked with the person who made it, and they also made the display for it and ended up entering both of them into the competition. So when displaying fine art, you might do something as simple as framing it and putting it on an easel. Again, something as simple as putting it on any sort of like elevated piece, putting cloth on it, maybe putting something around it. You can go simple, or you can go more elaborate in creating your own display for it, like the person did with the wet specimen. So many options. Looking at your culinary, so beverages, savory and sweet. Food is more appetizing when it has visual appeal. So anytime you go into a restaurant, you want to look at like how is the food displayed on the menu? How is the food displayed when it is presented to you? What kind of silverware, what kind of plates are you eating with? When a sandwich is brought to you, is it just a plain sandwich, or is it cut and opened up so that you can see the contents of the sandwich? Any way that you can elevate that the visuals for food will make it more appetizing. We don't just eat with like when we think of the senses that we eat with, it's not just our taste and our sense of smell, but we are also looking at the food visually. It is very significant for us. When presenting food, please provide the basics. So utensils, napkins, plates, silverware. How am I going to be eating this food? Too often, people will bring their food item in like a Tupperware container and then just leave it on the table. But they might be neglecting silverware or even something as simple as napkins. So maybe you are eating the food with your hands, but you should have something to clean yourself up with afterwards. But if you're presenting soup, we need bowls. If you are providing a cake, something to cut the cake with, something to eat the cake with. There's an excellent example in the bottom left corner of the PowerPoint of this food that was presented very well. It's on a decorative plate. It's got these fake flowers. The food is arranged around a glass with honey in it that you can eat the food with. The honey itself is not being judged, but it helps make the food that you are eating taste a little bit better. So decorative plating and accessories are a great way to help elevate the food that you are presenting. Additionally, providing elements to go along with the food. So if you are entering bread, you might put some butter with it so that people can, bread their butter, because that's something bread their butter, butter their bread, because that's something that people typically do is they eat bread with butter, or maybe a jam or another type of spread. Another option. So in the center, you can see that somebody entered an apple flavored beverage, a beverage that was made with apples, and they are presenting it beautifully on this large piece of wood. It's got apples. The drink is pre-poured into these really nice glasses, so the judges have to do very little. They get to see it, and they get to consume it, and it's very visually appealing. That was another one. Sometimes people have entered drinks without cups. So any way that you can make your presentation more visually appealing, but also just to make it easier to consume for the judges. Looking at writing, so fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, um, that can be a little more challenging to present aesthetically. Written work typically needs to be submitted at least 1 week prior to an ANS competition, but a physical copy still needs to be there. But too often, that physical copy is just loose leaf paper that's thrown on a table, kind of like somebody turning in an essay for a school project. I want you to think of uh, how can you hold all of the papers. Goodness, how can I say this? How can you present your papers, present your written work in a really neat way, and keep it safe? So using a 3-ring binder with sheet protectors, especially if somebody was just eating a food entry and then they come over to your item and they might have sticky fingers. You know, we want to keep your written piece clean and safe. But another way that you can elevate it is by putting any sort of written work in a fantasy or medieval style journal or notebook. So if you maybe the written entry that you have is like a journal entry, you could actually have it written in a journal, and so that would be another way that you could kind of elevate it beyond just having printed loose leaf paper. Construction, so weapon, armor, environment. For this, armor can be put on a mannequin or other display. There are a couple examples of pictures on the PowerPoint. Shield covers can be displayed on a shield. If you are presenting a shield cover, it should be on a shield. It should not just be laid crumpled up on a table. Same thing with weapons. You can hang them. They can be placed on cloth or fur. They can be displayed on a weapon rack. And not everything needs to necessarily have an elaborate display. So some of these items are going to be picked up and maneuvered a lot, so they don't necessarily need a lot of display, a lot of um, extra aesthetics, but any way that you can kind of present it in a more visually appealing way, the better. Garb. So this is going to be a big one for me. I have two. I have garb, court, and field, and then the next one will be accessories. But going over garb first with the court and the field garb, mannequins can be used to display garb. A simple T-form made with PVC or wood can also elevate garb. So I have two examples right here where these dresses are placed on mannequins, and that helps really show the form of them. The red dress specifically has like a cage skirt and petticoats and a bunch of extra pieces underneath that it would be very difficult to really get the shape of the dress if I were to just put it on a table. I'm going to say put it on a table an awful lot because boy, that's how most entries get displayed. It's just flopped on a table. But yeah, even the tunic example on the T form, that's just two pieces of wood, like super cheap, super affordable, and it still displays the piece. Even if you're just putting it on a coat hanger and putting it on like a rack of some sort, just to get it standing up a little bit, that would be helpful. Another option that you could use is having a essentially a live mannequin. So having a friend or somebody else come and wear the garb that's going to be judged. Just make sure that you, like, the person entering it is not the one who is wearing the outfit, unless the judges, unless the person running it is specifically going for that, in which case, that's great too. Um, but I know, for example, I do a lot of commission work, and so if I was entering a tunic that I made for somebody else, I might ask that person to wear their tunic because I know that that will probably be the best way I can display it is having garb that is made to fit a specific body wearing that garb. You can also sort of see on the red dress, that was one that I had made. I am a larger bodied person, and most of the mannequins that I borrow, because they can be kind of expensive, I'm not asking everybody to go out and buy a mannequin. If you can borrow one, that is fantastic. But a lot of the mannequins that I borrow are more petite, and so the dresses that I make for myself don't necessarily fit the mannequin the best. Um, so having a mannequin is a great way of showing off a lot of elements of that dress, but having the dress fitting on somebody that is the size of the dress would be even better. Even if you cannot put your garb on a mannequin, T-form, or anything like that, please make sure that it is clean, it is dry, and it is pressed if possible, especially if garb has already been worn. Do not, do not fight in a tunic in a tournament and then slap it on a table, sweaty and gross and stinky. Judges will not appreciate that. It's not going to score as well because it's really icky. If you can't put your garb on anything like a T-form or a mannequin, you can still place it on a table, folded neatly. If you have applique of some sort, like on the chest or the back, maybe you want to display that part, and so you might fold your tunic or your garb in a way that that shows that part off first. So lots of different options. If you can get it standing up, great. If you can't, that's fine too. There are so many different ways you can do it. So garb accessory, just because there's so much with garb. Accessories, use jewelry displays for chainmail or other jewelry pieces. Mannequin heads can show off hats or other headwear. So here we have like a crown on top of a headpiece that's on top of another stand. So really elevating it, showing off how it is meant to be worn. The chainmail piece in the second image, it if it were to be laid flat on a table, it might be a little harder to understand how the piece was meant to be worn, and so having it on the mannequin head really helps with that, helps with the visual. And then the Dragon Master belt favor, for example, isn't on a belt, but it is displayed with little bits and pieces around it to kind of like give it the aesthetic that it is going for. Since it's a pirate themed reign, we want pirate themed pieces and bits around it. Another thing too is there are different ways that you can display things like jewelry and pieces. So if you were to go into like a jewelry store, see how they display like rings and bracelets and necklaces. You can get like mannequin hands to show off rings and bracelets. Lots of different options. So don't feel like you are limited to one or two different things. You can get really creative with it and use like rods and other pieces. Fiber art, so that's your needlework, weaving, and quilting. Needlework is going to be similar to that 2D art. So embroidery and cross stitch should be framed. It should look finished. You can also put that on an easel, prop it up. Quilts, blankets, anything like that that you can, if you can get it on a quilt stand or a cheap clothing rack. Banners also on something that you can display the piece fully and preferably up and down, just so it takes up a little bit less space, and also it's easier for the judges to see and manipulate. Knitted and crocheted garments, kind of similar to garb, can be placed on mannequins, can be placed on mannequin heads, can be folded neatly or put on a table. I really like the example of Katape's knitted hat or crocheted hat, the fiber art hat, because it's got this cloth backdrop. It's also got the mannequin head, and it's a hat, and so it's on a head. It's displayed how it would be worn. Bardics. So that's including instrumental, vocal performance. Some people might think, well, there's not really much I can do to display a bardic. I'm singing, or I'm telling a story, or I'm telling a poem. Wrong. There's so much you can do with it. Wear garb that fits the piece being performed. If you are performing a drinking song, maybe have a prop to go with it, like a mug. Props elevate scenes and storytelling. There is an Amp Gardener named Sivhart who had goodness, they were doing a song or a poem about flowers, and they had a dress that was covered in roses, and they had a rose prop with them, and all of that went together and just really elevated the piece that they were performing. Same thing with facial expressions and body movement. Keep the judges engaged. Help tell a story. Um, so yeah, like you might not have something that you're displaying on a table, but you are the display. You need to perform, and you're not going to just show up in jeans and a t-shirt and tell a story as monotone as possible. You want to, essentially um, you are presenting yourself, and so you are dressing yourself to fit the role. You are bringing props to fit the role. You are moving your body to fit the role. So lots you could do to Bardics. And yeah, so that's it. That covers all of the different categories. In summary, like ultimately, you want to present your ANS entries as well as you can. Ask yourself, how would this be displayed in a store window? And again, for those foods, how would it be displayed at a restaurant? What kind of aesthetic are you going for? More so than anything, get creative. Find ways to set your items apart from the competition and show them off in the best light. So yeah, thank you. And I hope you have a good time crafting. I can't wait to see everybody's entries in Polaricon's Dragon Master. So yeah, good luck, everybody. Have a good night.